Hello and welcome to another serverless office hours. I'm Marcia Villalba and I can hear myself. Is that you or me? Huh?
Probably you.
Huh?
I just
It's me. I don't know where I'm listening myself. This is confusing. Can you hear myself twice?
You must have a device echoing somewhere.
Yeah, but if you cannot hear me, that's okay. I was welcoming everybody. I might have a browser open somewhere. Wait a second. I found it. Sorry for that. I was live also on Twitter's team. So again, welcome everybody. Sorry for the inconvenience. It's always a live stream. You know how it goes. I was saying I'm Marcia Villalba, developer advocate, and I have here with me the guest of the day, Revanth. He's a senior cloud application architect for AWS. How are you doing today?
Doing all right. Doing all right. Just getting ready for this one.
Are you ready? Yeah, you're going to talk about Alexa and building Alexa skills with serverless. So get your questions ready for Revanth. He will be guiding us through the whole process in the next hour. But before jumping into him, I want to give an announcement. Announcement is not an announcement, it's just a reminder. We are going to go all around the AWS summits with the Serverless DAs team. So if you happen to be in any of the cities where there is a summit, come and say hi. We'll be in the serverless booth or around there. So say hi. Many of us have talks in there, so you can come and learn from our talks there. If you don't know what AWS summits are, they are free events that are hosted in many cities around the world. So we have now next week in Paris, in London, in Madrid, in Milan, in Stockholm, in San Francisco. I don't know, so many. So I will put the link in the chat for you to get the list of where all the summits are going on. So now we jump into Revanth and he can introduce himself and tell us a little bit about what he does.
Awesome. This is Revanth Anireddy. I'm a senior cloud application architect working for ProServe at AWS. I'm from Austin, Texas, the best barbecue place. And I've been working with customers since 4 years now with respect to application modernization, application optimization. So anything with respect to app dev, that's what I've been doing. And in my spare time, I do swimming, and I also am taking a oil painting course at my local community college. So yay to that. So yeah.
Nice. Nice. So you're talking about Alexa skill. So my first question for you, what is an Alexa skill? And can we call her instead of Alexa like Maria or something? So
Sure. I'll refer to it as she. so,
she.
so again, I'm going back to Alexa skill. So Alexa skill is the voice services provided by Amazon, especially for designing voice user interfaces. Specifically, the skill is kind of like an application, like an app in Amazon, like in Alexa. So mobile app, Alexa skill. That's pretty much what it is. And using that skill, you'll be able to invoke these various using voice. You can invoke these various skills that you install in your account, and then do some necessary jobs and follow some situations and scenarios behind the scenes. So yeah, that's what Alexa skill is, and I'm sure
So
almost
it's just
everyone has it.
a client application for
Exactly.
voice.
Exactly. It's more of a device. It's more of a intermediary who will take your voice commands, convert it into a speech to text, and do some natural language processing, and then send it off to the interwebs to basically serve your request.
And there's where Lambda comes in place and
Exactly.
all these services that we love.
Exactly. Every
So
yeah. Just to add on to that, right? Every Alexa skill is either backed by a Lambda or any web service that can be reached by an HTTPS endpoint.
So basically, instead of having a React application, you will have an Alexa skill that can understand what you're saying, transcribe it into something, and send it to the backend that is basically a Lambda function or some HTTP server.
Exactly.
Cool. And why we want to do this? Why we want to have a client that listen to us?
Yeah. So with the advancements of voice technologies, like in terms of natural language processing, speech recognition, voice was the next area we were moving away from, which is from the user interface, which we already know, which is a web application or a mobile application. And voice is always the more closest form of user interface to a human, right? It is the closest form to conversations. For example, when you're talking, you will be a little informal, but when you're writing, you're actually very formal. So it is very close to how you speak daily, and how that is the closest form of human conversation than, say, web UI, where you click on buttons. So, and also, especially for when you're talking about visual disabilities, voice is the best way to get that request response, serve your requests, and get that information, whatever you need, or do some job. So that also helps from that angle as well.
Yeah, it's super cool to see little kids talk to these devices and like asking like, can you play Happy Birthday for me? Or can you put something on TV? Like they learn super fast how to communicate with those devices. And it's like, wow.
Thank God my dogs did not know how to say Alexa. So
Maybe they invent something that with 2 barks they can trigger it and then order some dog food on Amazon. Can we build that skill? So do we need to know something to build these skills? Because when you build a React application, you need to know how to do UI, UX, web development. When you build a mobile app, it's the same. But when you build a voice app, what you need to know?
Yeah, so designing a voice app, it's all about the voice experience, right? Voice experience is nothing but a two-way interaction between a user and a machine or a system, but using the fundamentals of a human conversation. And it will be effective only when you're building these conversations in a way which are very close to what we do in a daily life, in the sense that you want to make it so easy for the user that you don't have to explain the user what the system is. He can figure it out, navigate himself. So as a designer who is doing voice user interface, I'll be looking at figuring out or a way to dwell into the user's mind to say, what are their needs? What is the journey that they need to take to get to the destination? Like, how do you navigate just through voice, right? And all of this is fundamentally based on human conversation that we all do in daily life. It's more like script writing. Like when you see a script writing, user 1, user 2, user 3, this is request response. So if we can go towards that, that is a compelling experience for a user with any voice-based interfaces.
Okay, I would love to know if the audience have designed Alexa skill, and if they have done it, what kind of skill they have built, and like how they work with these technologies, even just for a simple hello world. Because I imagine it's quite an interesting experience to design a voice application, because it's not like you can do a menu like one step, 2 step, like people will forget about everything, but then you cannot overload them with like options, like how
yeah it's always definitely a tricky part to design some of these things, where you don't want Alexa to just blurt out tons and tons of verbiage where you lost the user then and there. So
it's like when you call these phone centrals that they are like, press 1 for this, press 2 for this, press 4 for this, press 9 for this. I don't remember what 1 was.
Exactly, right? You want to make it much more human than talking to a robot, which is what's happening on the phone. So yeah, following some of these like best practices to not do and don'ts, you should be able to quickly go into figuring out a way to design a voice user interface which is close to humanly as possible, and the user is not feeling compelled to even use your skill.
Yeah, sure. Can you give us some examples of what are good skills, so we can start from there?
Good skills are the ones which will help the user navigate to their destination very easily, right? Like,
but
for example,
an example, like what app is great, or what kind of skill you think is amazing use case for this?
If you look at it in the sense that ordering stuff, right? Ordering food wise, that's a great skill where I know you'll have tons of menus and stuff like that, but good skills, good voice skills always complement the visual component as well. Like you have a phone, you set something up, and then there's a what do you call, there's a synergy between the voice and the
Ah,
UI as well to 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 get to your destination, because having a visual component, a little bit of visual component is always compelling for the user.
so you can
So
combine these two things together.
yes, exactly, and especially like I know I've showed you like a Echo Dot, but there are devices like Echo Show which actually has a visual display on it, and maybe the results which you get is too much for voice to say, but it's enough to put it on a screen somewhere beside you. So it's a combination of both. Both are complementing each other. So any skills that leverages both, like for example, give me the top 10 tasks I have for today. I don't want
Mm.
Alexa to tell me all the tasks. I just want to tell it the topmost priority, and the rest it should be either voluntarily from the user to ask for more, or show it on my screen or on my phone. Text me all those tasks, right? So that is a great app where you're using both worlds.
Yeah, I love the ones that are for the news or something like that. And like you wake up and say, "Hey, what are the news today?" or something like that, and then it starts like you don't need to press any button or find the YouTube video to watch the
Correct.
news or find the web page. Just like starts like a radio,
Yeah, yeah.
but on your own demand when you want the news. And many news sites have these type of skills that I
Mhm.
love them.
Yeah, those are actually called flash briefing skills, where you just get the
Mm,
gist of that day, whether it's
yeah.
corporate news or city news, whatever you want to make it.
Yeah. And then other skills I found, at least when I discovered that they were a great fit, is like storytelling. Like you
Yeah.
can build these type of gaming books or something
Mhm.
like that, like build your own adventure. Like you listen
Right.
to the story and then you can say where to go and then the story builds itself. And I found those extremely engaging. It's
It's
like an
actually
audio book where I have a participation.
it's actually very similar to those text-based games you had back in the day, where you have to type
Yeah.
the adventure, what's the next step, you type it, and then you go. Instead, you do it with voice.
But I think it works so amazingly with voice because you just lying in the sofa and then you're listening to this audiobook and then
Right,
you're
right.
like building up the story. So I find some of these use cases are really good for audio.
Sure.
Um, so what kind of best practices? You mentioned that if you follow some best practices, you can get there. So what do
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can?
yeah. So you got to keep in mind that you're designing for the ear, primarily more than the eye. So that is, as I said before, right? Like, when you talk, it's much more less formal, versus when I'm writing, it gets much more formal. So that is the closest way to do all these things. And the next practice is the Alexa has given you an NLP engine on the device, but at the same time, you still need to train that NLP with your skill. For example, my intention is to ask about weather. Now, I can ask that in 10 different ways. Now, it's Alexa's job to figure out all these questions actually mean the same thing, that the user wants to ask about weather. So, as you're building this NLP, as you're designing your application, you'll have more like phrases or utterances, which we'll talk about a little bit while we're doing a demo, while we're doing some live coding, we'll see these utterances. So the more utterances you have, the more phrases you're anticipating the user saying, oh, the user might ask, what's the weather today, or weather today, and I have to give the same answer. So that is also an important thing, to anticipate those phrases so that users don't have to struggle with, oh, I have to remember a phrase to ask that question. It needs to be just naturally open, like a flowing way that they can ask these questions.
But can you train the system to learn those
Uh,
new trends? Because you might not have all the ideas in your head when you're building
yeah.
this thing.
Yeah, you keep on, as you keep using the skill with those utterances, it keeps training on itself. It keeps building that model behind the scenes. So the more examples you have, the better it is. As you start discovering new ways to ask about that intention, you add that as part of your interaction model that we will see soon.
Cool. And now you mentioned that Alexa has this NLP. What else? So how the architecture is? So you have, when you're building a skill, what you
Mhm.
need to do, like Alexa does the natural language processing. Uh, and what else does Alexa do for
Yeah,
you?
so the Alexa service itself on the device, or on an Alexa enabled device, does a speech to recognition, speech to text, natural language understanding of what it is. That means every time you utter a phrase, Alexa, open this and do this, it's going to break it down and say, based on the wake word, which is Alexa or computer or Echo, which you can use right now, and the launch word, and then the intent. It'll then figure out that, oh, you actually want to open this skill with this intention. And then it's going to translate that and call the appropriate skill, whether it's Lambda or HTTPS or whatever endpoint or whatever that is. Um, and that all happens on this device. And then it talks to the Lambda in the cloud to send the request, get the appropriate response. Whatever response it is, it's going to be speech. It's just going to, then it's going to tell that speech and either wait for prompt or end that session.
Okay, so basically, when you're designing the voice app, the client part, you're basically just saying what the different possibilities of what the user can say, and then linking them with different backend actions.
Right, exactly. All these intents are then in the back end. You have a handler, which is like, what do you need to do with that? Like, there's a business logic behind each of those handlers.
That's cool. Hey, people watching, if you have any questions, I'm asking all the questions here. So I would love that I get some interaction from you. We are live. So ask your questions and tell us if you have used Alexa or some skill, build some skill, or even if you have any questions. Here we have Revanth answering them all for us. And we have plenty of time today because you're so quiet. So, I would love to jump now into showing some code. So maybe wake up the people watching. They maybe want to see some code and not me speaking like a parrot and you answering all my questions. So let's jump there and see what we are building today.
Awesome. Let me just share my screen. Let me know when you can see this.
I can see myself in your screen.
Perfect. Okay. Awesome. That's exactly what I wanted to see. All right, cool. So the prerequisites for the building any Alexa skill is to have their developer.amazon.
You might need to make it bigger, and the people in the audience can say if it's not big enough, because I'm very blind, so I always pushing it to the edge.
All right, so just to repeat, so we need a developer console to create these Alexa skills. Your Alexa skills, actually everything resides over here in terms of the interaction model, the build, test, whatever testing you can do all in this particular console, which is developer.
There's a couple of questions that are not related to what we are talking today, but I will give them some pointers because I think it's important. The first one is from Alex, that he's looking of an example of Express TypeScript AWS API gateway. We have, I don't know if we have an example on that, but we have a web page called the Serverless Land Patterns, where you can find a lot of content that has been built with different languages and using different services. So maybe there you can find that particular example. I will put in the chat in a second the link for that. And then we have King Herman asking how do I get started with serverless. I think also Serverless Land is the first place to go. Also, you can check the Twitter for any of the DAs, developer advocates from serverless. We talk a lot about how to get started, or I have a YouTube channel where I put a lot of information as well on getting started with serverless. So I will link all those things in the chat while Revanth is showing us how to get started with Alexa. But thank you for your questions. Now we can continue.
Awesome. So the prerequisites for any Alexa skill is to have a developer.amazon.com account. It can be, you can sign up with it and you can create your skills, whatever it is.
That's not AWS.
Kind of linked behind the scenes, but yeah, it is not your AWS.amazon.com.
Exactly.
It's a completely different one. And obviously the second prerequisite is to have an AWS account, which you already logged in. And then, that's pretty much it. So for the demo, what we're trying to do is the goal of the session or the demo is to come up with use AWS serverless technologies to spin up create an app Alexa skill in few minutes, right? Using services like Codestar, which is our AWS service to create an end-to-end pipeline for continuous delivery, which includes creating a code repository, you creating a pipeline, creating a build stage, creating a deploy stage, and then hooking onto your developer.amazon.com account for Alexa. So all this happens in few minutes. Back in the day before this was there, I had to go to developer.amazon.com, create a Alexa, like a metadata, hook it back into the Lambda function, give some permissions on this AWS account. So all this is taken care of with Codestar, which makes it extremely easy from end to end, and using a continuous delivery, which is what the builders or developers generally tend to go towards.
That's super cool.
Yeah, so diving into that. So Codestar again is an end-to-end is a service that enables us to quickly develop, build and deploy applications end to end. That is the beauty of it. It takes a lot of heavy lifting on yourself from out of yourself, and it does it on its own. So let's go ahead and actually create the project. Okay, so we create a project. Let me know if it is small.
Now it's better, but the people in the audience can complain if they don't see it properly.
I will hear to that and increase this font accordingly.
Exactly, but I think now it's good.
Cool. So going here, I'll say the project.
So there is like a template or something.
Exactly. It just makes it easy. So I picked the Alexa template with Node.js just because it's got a lot of support in the community. It was the primary language which was used when Alexa came into picture way back in the day. So I'm going to name this perfect demo. I don't want to jinx my. I guess I am jinxing.
You're really tempting the demo gods here.
I know. That's cool. So this is the
risk taker.
It is. So yes, I am. I know. So this is the part that is the easiest part, which is the Amazon developer account. Since you have it, so what it does, it can connect automatically to your screen behind the scenes, and it's gonna basically I'm gonna punch in my credentials. Hopefully they work. If not, I guess I will be jinxing myself. There you go. So what it does basically, then it says, does it allow it behind the scenes? It's going to create all the permissions and rules that you need for the deployment to happen from AWS account to a developer.amazon.com. So there you go.
So in the developer.amazon account, again, will be our client. So our website, in this case, our voice skill, our voice app. And then in the backend is running in AWS.
Got it. Yes, that's exactly what happened. So once I confirm, now what happens behind the scenes, like this, picks up, you have the basic details, Node.js, Alexa skill, Lambda, code commit. This is my vendor based on.
So it creates a repository as well.
It does everything end to end, right? It creates a repository for code commit, build stage, deploy stage, all wrapped in a nice.
So let's rewind a little bit because maybe people that are listening don't know about code commit. So code commit is like the AWS GitHub, and I imagine here you will be writing your Lambda functions directly into the repository, and then when you publish do a commit or push to some branch or do something, then the deployment automatically will start. And then when you maybe push to another branch, I don't know how this is set up, it might start the deployment to production. So we will have two different stages, one for testing or like called stage. Hello, Mark. And then we will have another one that is the production. So you can test freely and do all the changes you want and break everything. But then you will have the one that your customers are going to see, that the one that will be,
So this template gives a very simple stuff. Like you can add stages, you can add approval stages, you can add more stuff. It's open to interpretation how you want to do it. Different people do the continuous deployments versus continuous delivery. So it's up to you how you work.
But that's cool that everything is cooked there, because that's usually a challenge when you start with a blank canvas. Then the easiest thing is to go to console, click, 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 and then you never migrate it to the good way.
So why are we doing this? I'm going to just say create project. So what happens? It takes a few minutes because it's got to do code commit, code build, code pipeline, code deploy, and link to Alexa.
So it's building everything, code pipeline as well. So wow.
So if you see here, right in the screen here, it says IDE, repository, pipeline, and you can see that everything, all of them in one place. You can see all of them. You can go to their respective
So
places as
Code
well.
Pipeline and Code Build are two different services from the same place that Codestar is, I think, from the
Yeah,
same
so
type of suits. Yeah.
correct. Code Pipeline helps you orchestrate all these services like source, build, deploy, test, whatever phases. Code Pipeline encompasses and orchestrates all these things in a way, in a smooth manner, and also give you a nice feedback loop. So, okay, look at it. So we already have a repository ready.
Woohoo!
So if we go, let's go back here. So there you go. That's our basic template, which everything cooked in already. I didn't write a single line of code yet. My hello world is code is ready. Now it will
Nice.
get deployed soon. So if you look at, let's refresh this. So yeah, as I said, it's going to take a few minutes to
So for
get to
the
that
ones
point.
that always ask for the code for this thing, Revan has not put a line of code, so you need to create the same steps and you will end up in the same place.
Exactly. I haven't even started coding on this one. It's just click of
Exactly.
buttons.
That's good. That's my favorite type of code.
In the meantime, let's go ahead and clone this repo into our favorite IDE. So I'm using a Cloud9 IDE, which is from AWS itself. So it is a browser-based IDE, which I use pretty frequently in terms of when I'm doing demos or anything like that. It's very handy, and it is a Linux box in the backend. So I install whatever I need to do my development. So let's go ahead and
Make the font bigger.
I will. I will. The font is bigger. The terminal is slow. I'll show you. So let's
I
pop
will be
this.
a meme on the internet. Make the font
See, see
bigger.
that?
Now it's good. Now
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
good.
yeah. So if you look at the code structure, right? It's got a template.yaml, which is a
So is
CloudFormation
this
template.
the cloud formation? That's was
Yep,
my
yep.
question. Good.
So if you see, this is one Lambda function. There's a role attached to it, and that's it, right? You can build on top of it as you go. If you want to put queues, DynamoDB, world is your oyster. Um, and then there are other key things which I do want to talk about while the code is building. It's this. This is the skill.json. I know my this side left side navigation is not too big, but I'm spelling it out. It's
Good.
skill.json. This is the manifest of your metadata of your skill. Like whenever you are ready to publish your skill, how will the users learn about your skill? This is the metadata about it. Like testing instructions, what are the categories, how do I talk to it, how do I invoke it, basic information that you can add on top of this. So it's like a metadata for that particular skill. And we have your Lambda function, which it's already pre-cooked, nothing fancy. It's just going to say hello world, not to all these intents. I'm going to talk about it a little bit. I'm
Yes.
going to
I
dive
was
deep a little
wondering
bit.
what is all those
Yeah.
handlers there?
Yep. I will look into it. So the heart and soul of the skill is this interaction model.
Oh,
This is where entire thing is what's kind of driven, right? So starting from the beginning, right, you have invocation name hello. It says hello node because it's a template, right? What that means is that that's how I invoke my skill. Whenever I say Alexa open hello node, this skill gets invoked.
so
This is the
that's
one.
like the client part. We are
Yeah,
now in
we
the
are naming it. We are naming the skill. We are naming the skill, saying this is how I'm going to talk to you. Like if it's say Google, I'm going to say, hey, hey Google or whatever. But this is more like, task
yeah.
runner. Hey, open task runner, and this is my skill, right? And then you have the next ones are all intents. I know, you see, when I say intent is nothing but an intention. Say for example, my intention is to ask for the weather for today. That's my intention, right? So I am capturing all those kinds of instants. Some of them are preceded by amazon dot something. That means they are pre-built by Amazon, which Amazon gives you automatically. When Amazon can recognize, Alexa can recognize you when you say cancel, help, stop,
Yeah.
all those things.
The
Now,
classic intents.
exactly. Classical intentions, right? But if you go down a little bit, then you see hello world intent. This is not by Amazon. This is my own custom skill or a custom intent which I want. What I want to do is basically when people say hello, and these are the phrases which I talked about. Like how can people invoke this intention? They can say hello, how are you, hi world, hi, all these various kinds of things that are that you can build. This is a hello world intent. Now, that's the only intent which is there, but we'll build on more intents. We'll add more intents. Now that I talked about this intent, somebody has to process this. Somebody has
Yes.
to get that data and process it. So if I go to index.json, every intent has a handler. So this is the hello world intent handler. And the request intent name is Alexa has recognized that, hey, somebody said hello. So this code needs to get executed as part of that process. So what it does, it forms a speech text. You're building that speech. What is the response you want to give it back, right? In this case, it's going to just say hello world and say, cool, I'm done. That's all. It's not a fancy application. It's just a very
So
simple.
basically, also Alexa takes care of transforming that text to speech back to the user. So
Yes, exactly. You just have to build your speech and say speak, like as it says literally here.
And
Speak.
can you use? I imagine this exact thing works as a chatbot on text, because it's kind of the same. Everything is texty.
Yeah. So behind the scenes, Amazon Lex or Lex chatbots, they have a very similar kind of request response where there's a text to it, but the response also comes back as a text. So this takes care of all that, and it is very similar framework in terms of framework wise. So yeah, so these are the intents, and every intent, even if you want, you can say you can intercept the inbuilt help. Somebody just says help. I can intercept that and say, hey, you know what? Just say hello to me, or how can I help? I'm giving more options to the users to feel comfortable.
So all these handlers don't have anything to do with the Lambda handler that we are familiar with. Like, what is the entry point for when you define the infrastructure? Usually we have this Lambda handler.
Correct.
So it's a different type of handler.
It's a little different, but behind the scenes, if you see,
Yeah.
it is actually doing a handler. It is a Lambda handler, but I'm registering all my intents over here. So as you
Exactly.
keep adding new intents to this, I'm going to add to this as it is to recognize it. Otherwise, Lambda will say, okay, I don't know what you're talking about, so I'm going to
So it's one Lambda function, multiple intents. It's not like you have one function per intent.
Correct. One Lambda. So one skill, one Lambda.
I'm asking all the stupid questions.
No.
Sorry
these are great questions. These are the questions I asked when I started. So it's the same. So yeah, and then you have some fancy error handlers. That means if something goes wrong, how do you gracefully get out of the way and help user to, say, hey, you want to try that again?
Oops.
Maybe. Yeah. All these are actually best practices, right? Gracefully getting out, helping the user along the way. These are all great practices which designers need to keep in mind when designing an Alexa skill. So now that we have it, let's see if the cooking is completed. So Codestar pipeline.
This is how code pipeline looks, and everything looks green. So green is a good color.
Oh, great! It's a great color for this one. So let's go here and refresh my page here. Okay, so you see that skill name?
Yes.
That's hello node, which basically is coming from skill.json, and you see this guy here?
Yes.
So it's using that information to basically put the skill name and also the invocation name. So now that we have it, yeah, any questions, Marcia?
Yes, there is one here, and Gregory and Wolf ask, can an Alexa skill be invoked based on events instead of when it's spoken to? For example, a baseball game has started and Alexa automatically starts reading the commentary out.
At this moment of time, there isn't. There are something called proactive events. For example, when you receive an order from Amazon and you have it hooked up to Alexa does just the yellow ring, and you have to ask for, hey, what is that? What is that notification, right? So at this moment of time, it's not going to just start going off as without any kickstart because of probably privacy reasons, not sure of, but that feature doesn't exist at this point. But you can leverage kind of like a proactive events where your Echo pops with a yellow ring, and then you can ask questions on, hey, what do you have for me? And then it will tell you all those, oh, you got your order now. So
cool. Thank you. And if you have more questions, keep them coming.
Awesome. So I'm going to move along until a question
Yes,
comes.
I
So,
will be looking at them.
so there are plenty of ways to test the skill. Now that code is ready, skill is deployed in my account. I can do testing in two ways. I can just use straight up my device as is,
Is it
or for
appear there already?
so, yeah, it's already ready to test now.
But it's in
Um,
your device in like the Alexa
yeah,
store, or because you're connected with the same account in the
exactly,
developer
exactly.
console and in your device.
Exactly. So I'm connected to the same account as I'm registered with this account, this Alexa device. So whatever I install here, it's gonna be ready to be consumed here. All right.
Nice.
So there are two ways to do it. Once I can just use the device and say, "Hey Alexa, open Hello Node," or I can, for people who do not have access to devices, they can actually go to the once you click on the scale, you have variety of information and tools that you can build your application in. First is the build. When I say build, it is building the model behind the scenes. So for example, if I change an utterance saying, hey, instead of hello, I'm going to say, I don't know, hola, right? If I change that, I have to build that model. I have to rebuild that model. So that's what this build is. Code is not something which is part of this Codestar because we already have code in our code commit. But for people who are not using Codestar and using Alexa hosted skills, they'll have this pop up. If I click on this one, there's going to be nothing. It's going to say, you have to convert to Alexa hosted. Alexa also hosts
Yeah.
skills as is with code as well. The next tab over here is a test, right? For people who do not have a device and want to test the application they built, they have to basically go to this test feature over here, set it to development, okay, and then basically you have Alexa in this web portal here right there. So you can say Alexa is already assumed, so you can just say open.
So it's text-based. So that's
Yeah,
good because
you
it'll
can.
be very awkward to start talking to your test environment. Hello in the office. Hello, 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 hello.
Yeah. Did you guys hear the response from Alexa?
No.
Okay, cool. I may have to like pop this guy open, but I could hear it in my headphones. So this is a purely for test base. What happens is I have detailed information of what Alexa is thinking behind the screen, behind the scenes to say, oh, you said hello, so I'm gonna go launch it first. So all these are calculated behind the scenes before it comes to us as this response, which Alexa just spoke to me in my headphones. So I can say at this point of time the session is open. I can say hi. And basically what it did was, oh, you said hi. The utterance converts this into a hello world intent. Whatever is in the hello world intent, it's gonna basically spit out. Like for example, so it figured out this is the hello world intent. Then say, oh, this is the response I want to give, and that is what it's gonna speak. That's kind of what happened behind simple one. It's not doesn't have any fancy navigations and stuff like that. So this is your shell program that you begin with, and then you go off and add more utterances, add more handlers, add more fancy business logic if you may. So now that we have any questions so far? Anyone?
Not yet. Not yet.
Cool. All right. So now that we have a baseline of some of these things, let's go ahead and modify this. Actually, I do want to run something. Okay. I'm going to zoom it a little bit so that you guys can also see what I'm trying to do here. Nope, can't see.
I don't know what you're trying to do.
I am just showing you the interaction model, nothing
more.
So every interaction model we saw has intents, which is basically the intention of the user. Like what are we fulfilling the request for?
Give me the weather.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. That's my intention.
Call my mom.
Exactly. That is also an intention, I guess. So the sample utterances are what the dynamic, like how do I invoke that intent? How do I tell Alexa that this is my intention? I have various ways to speak about it. So again, I can ask the weather 10 different ways. Those are the sample utterances. Now, slots are the ones which are what captures some of these values. For example, if I want to know, for my skill is about giving me the latest stock price of a certain company, I'm going to say, Alexa, open stock ticker to give me price on Amazon, or give me a price on Twitter. So the Amazon and Twitter, they are the dynamic variables. I need to capture those as part of a slot. So if you see the sample utterances, I'm listing it out as a slot so that I capture it in my code and say, hey, which company are you looking for? Once I get that, I do an API call, get that information, send that back.
It's
Slots are
like your
like
variables in
exactly,
your
exactly,
application.
exactly. They're optional arguments. You don't have to have slots, but you can capture some of these slots. Slots can be, again, some are built. Amazon gives you some of these slots, like movie genres and food and stuff like that. Or you can build your own slot. Like I want to have my own activities in my house, which Amazon doesn't know. So I create
And
my
can
own.
you do things like, for example, if you're building a weather app, if you say, give me the weather, it gives you the weather wherever you are located. And if you say, give me the weather in Paris, because you're traveling there tomorrow, it gives you the weather in Paris. So it can be with the slot or without the slots.
Exactly, exactly. And you can also, when you say, give me the weather, and you say, for example, book a flight, I can actually say, book a flight from Paris to Switzerland. But at times, user can just forget and say, book a flight. Now, how do you do that, right? There's something called dialogue delegation. Like you're delegating that to Alexa to collect all that information. Then Alexa will then, without going to your code, will say, hey, tell me where you're going from and tell you where you're going to. In that way, once I get it, then my code at the end will say, oh, somebody wants to book a flight from Paris to Bern, Switzerland. So that's how dialogue delegation works. So there's a lot more details in terms of how you build that stuff out.
That's cool.
So
So that's the validation in the websites.
mhm,
When you
mhm.
forget to put the input, it marks you with a red asterisk. In here, it's
Exactly,
like Alexa,
exactly.
very polite, asking you,
Yeah.
can you give me?
Also, you can also validate the slots. Each of those slots, say, for example, you want only for certain variables to be in that slot. You can validate the slots before even you get to your Lambda. So Alexa can help you validate those slots using a schema, like a rule schema and stuff like that. So on the
So,
screen, it's
for
just a
example,
yeah.
to make sure that it's like, if you're asking for, let's book a flight, you want to get a date or a
Mhm.
city, not
Exactly.
like a random
Mhm.
gibberish.
Yeah, more information, right? I'm getting more information to
Yeah.
help you get to
But the
your destination
validation is to
faster.
make sure is that it's the right type. So, for
Correct,
example,
correct.
if you ask, I want to book a flight from French fry to hamburger, it will say, hey, no, those are not two cities. So,
Yeah, you can have those validations, like have a list
yeah.
of cities that are valid, and anything outside that is a red flag, and you give that back. So again, I know we are running out close to time. So
Well, we have still around 15 minutes. So,
cool. Let's hope the demo guards are still doing good on my side.
they
So
like you still.
in the sample flow, this is a very simple flow, right? Users using Alexa-enabled devices talk to the various skills. It's a custom skill, smart home skill. Behind the scenes, there's a Lambda. Each of these is backed by Lambda. Then to the appropriate service. Again, using with Lambda, you get access to all other AWS services as well, as long as you have the right IAM roles and permissions. So I do want to talk a little bit about the different types of skills Alexa has, right? I know this is a custom skill and there's a smart home skill. This is not an exhaustive list. So I'm going to touch upon a little bit of what a custom skill is. Custom skill is what we built just right now, the Hello World one, which is you have control on the user experience. You have control on what phrases the user can say. You're controlling most of that manner. It gives you the flexibility to do all that stuff. But at the same time, it is not the easiest of the skill to work with because of the fact that you have
You
to
need
do
to build
almost
everything.
everything.
Yeah.
Exactly. You need to figure it out. You need to do this dialogue delegation. You have to do all these things. Those are things. Then you have something like smart home skill, which is used to control your light bulbs, TVs, thermostats, and so on and so forth. That is the easiest. It's very easy compared to custom skill in terms of how do you set up, because it's all pre-built. There is no customization. You will not be able to customize enough. It's a little closed. So there's a pros and cons. If you want more control on your interaction,
And
stick
how
with
you
custom.
get to those special skills? It's also from or you show us, or the Codestar,
So
or
yeah, so in the Codestar, right now the sample template is to just use a custom skill to do it. But I believe if you go to skill.json and the manifest file which you have, you can modify that. And Another way to actually create an Alexa skill is to use something called the Ask CLI. Ask is nothing but Alexa Skills Kit, the kit which you use to make the skills. Behind the scenes is all Alexa Skills Kit. So using that CLI, you should be able to pick these various types of um, skill types like smart home skill, automotive skill, cooking skill, food skill. Like all these are there, which are available right now. Custom skill is what we picked for this kind of demo because it is one of the ones where you have more control and a little complex as well.
Nice.
Awesome.
So I put in the chat the link to the Ask CLI so people can find it.
Awesome. So for this demo, so since I told you in the beginning, right, it's designing a skill is more of a script writing job. It's like, hey, user system. How close are you to the? So if you look at it, the way I open my application or skill is using this wake word called Alexa. Either you can use Alexa or computer or Echo based on how you configure it. There's a launch word.
You just woke up a lot of machines right now.
I'm going to say computer, as in Star Trek. Then you have the launch word, which is the open, ask, tell. All these are small launch words. And then you have your invocation name. In my case, I put it as awesome demo, and that's what it is. Once Alexa figured out that, oh, this user wants to open the skill called awesome demo, I'm going to quickly get into that Lambda and see what is that launch of that Lambda, right? Every code, every Lambda, it has a request. Like if I go to here, if you look at the topmost, this is a launch request. So I can actually recognize when somebody launched my skill. And if somebody launches my skill, what do I need to do here? I write more code over here. So in this case, it says, welcome. You can say hello or help. But in my case, I said, hello, you can ask me what activities I have planned or create a new activity. What would you like to do? And then you say, okay, what task do I have? Now you see, like it's very, this utterance is not similar to what this is, but I made sure that behind the scenes, I've captured all these various ways or various phrases the users can actually invoke that particular intent to what task do I have. So that way you can control all these things behind the scenes. Once I say what task do I have, Alexa will then say, oh, this is the get activity intent which we have. So I'm going to say, oh, you don't have any activity for today. It's going to go back into the database, look at it. Would you like to create one? So you see how it's making just easier for the user to get into that instead of saying press 1 for answer, press 2 for this. It's more of
we'll love that.
Yeah, it's more of a conversational thing. And user says, yes, okay, tell me what the activity is. And then you say, create an activity for slot. This is the slot I was referring to. Like it could be running, it could be hiking, it could be trekking. What do I know? So this is a way to capture that dynamic variable. Once I've done that, store it in the persistence or do whatever I want to do with it. And then say, okay, cool, done. You have one new activity. What else would you like to do now? Says nothing. Then I request that, oh, nothing means stop or cancel. So let's go close the session. Boom. So it's a very clean conversational flow. I know it's a simple app, but it all starts from this to have that script, right? Back, forth. How do I make it much more easier for the user to make those changes? So
that's your design kind of the voice.
Exactly. If I were to design an activity tracker, how would start like this?
You can also do a soap opera with this.
Feel free to. As long as the intentions are clear,
That's never in a soap opera.
So yeah.
So how you translate this to lambdas?
Yes. So let's see. Okay, I'm gonna make a quick detour over here in the interest of time. What I'll do is let's change my okay. There you go. All right, cool. I'm going to just minimize this bad boy a little bit. Okay. All right. So let's come from the top. So what I did was I replaced my Hello World model with my own model, which is the activity tracker, which is a perfect demo. So as you can see, there's the cancel intent, help intent, stop intent, pretty same, not so fancy. There's also Hello World, which I didn't really take it out. Then there is the get activity intent. So what does this even mean, right? So when a user says, give me all the activities, tell me all the activities, list all, how many activities, how many do I have, what activities are. All this translates to a get activity intent. Then it's like, oh, okay, so it is, the user means to say he wants to get activity. So I'm going to go behind the scenes, write that logic. So I'm going to copy that piece of code and put it over here. Okay. So now, okay, I know it's a lot. I'm going to just go slowly.
It's okay. We don't
Yeah.
need to look at all the handlers.
Yes.
Now we
So,
know what they mean.
yes. So if you look at it, this is my get activity handler. So whenever I get this is some metadata which Alexa gives you. This is the request basically Alexa gives you. In
There is a
that it also.
question
Mhm.
on from Mark that
Yeah.
says, when deploying the custom skill, do they become part of the global skills or only available to those who knows the custom skill?
Great question. So the question being, if I publish the skill, is this available only to my Echo Dot,
Yeah.
or is it for yeah? So at this moment of time, I haven't published this. I haven't distributed it. I haven't certified it. Every Alexa skill, like any mobile application, needs to go through a certification process. So you need to do this. So there's a separate tab over here. Long before, in prehistoric days, in 2015, on those times, certification used to happen it was much more simpler in the sense that there is somebody who's actually validating your code and then sending you responses and so on and so forth. I went through that long back. Now with this one, you can actually go to this and certify. There is a certain validation uh, that is run on the skill, like how good is it. So you can see there's so many things that I need to fix, like getting an icon, getting a description. I have to fill all this information before it goes live onto the app store or the skill store, the Alexa skill store. So I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So in the get activity handler, so what I have is based on, oh, is this a get activity intent? Okay, great, cool. Let me go get what the user ID for this, whoever is requested it, right? So all this information is available. So for example, Marcia, if you go install this skill on your Echo and I install it on my Echo, when I'm invoking it, I have my own user ID, which is a combination of, my Amazon account and, whatever the particular detail is. You have your own user ID. So both these, in that way, I can separate that data in the database in the persistence level so that I can do my queries or any of those things. So this information is also handy that you can use. You don't have to use, but I'm using it over here just to make
But
it
it's handy.
Exactly. Also, for applications that need authentication, for example, I want to install an Uber app or an Uber voice-based skill on my Alexa, but Uber needs to authenticate. I can't give a username password through voice. So it's gonna basically, there is something called account linking, which happens on your phone through your Alexa app. You can actually go to the Uber app, get the OAuth, get sign in, get the account, and then that information always feeds off to your handlers every single time to verify who is this user. Like,
That's
is
good.
this user? Yeah. So that also you can do. There's account linking that you can proactively do as part of your skill. This one doesn't, but you can. So in my case, I get the user ID. I do some persistence to see if there is any activities in there based on the response. Right now, there is not much of code. It says 0 activities. Would you like to create one? I say yes. Then it'll go to the yes intent. It says, okay, go ahead. And once I go to the go ahead and then say, okay, cool. I'll say create a running activity for me. Then it's going to go to the create activity intent handler because it's going to say, oh, the phrase you used is actually create activity. So let's go create an activity. So what I'll do then is I take the user ID. I also take the activity. Remember the slot values I said? It's basically these guys. I created a list of bunch of activities: swimming, running, trekking, hiking, XYZ.
So you can validate.
Exactly. And then based on that, I take that, I save that to the database, and I say, okay, cool. I've saved this for you. What else would you like to do? Then again, it's the same process. I can ask for
Is
more.
that database something from Alexa or is like a Dynamo?
It's Dynamo. It's Dynamo. So
Nice.
if you look at the template, let me go grab the latest template which I have. So
we have 5 minutes, and I'm asking you so many questions. You were worried that we will not have enough time to go through the hour. I told you.
yeah. Okay, so if you look at this, this is the template. I didn't make much change. I just added DynamoDB table.
Okay, cool.
I passed it on to my Lambda saying, hey, use this table to save all your data. There are other ways to do it. People use DynamoDB for other ways, but in this case, I was just storing a task for that user, and that's pretty much it. So, do you want me to go to the demo? I have a pre-prepared demo, which I have.
Yeah, if you can show it in 5 minutes, that will be amazing. So we can put the cherry on the cake.
Awesome. All right, cool. All right, so I already have a skill installed on this account called Awesome Demo. Okay, so I'm going to just invoke it. I'm going to follow very similar to what we have on the conversation level, like similar to whatever this is, which is open. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. All right, Alexa, open Awesome Demo.
Welcome to your activity tracker. You can ask me what activities I have planned or create new activity or help. What would you like to do?
Get all the activities.
You have 0 activities planned for the day. Would you like to create one?
Yes. Oh, it crashed. Demo
gods.
I know. Let's give it one more try. Alexa, open Awesome Demo.
Welcome to your activity tracker. You can ask me what activities I have planned or create new activity or help. What would you like to do?
Create a running activity.
I have saved run activity for you. What else would you like to do?
Nothing.
Peace out.
So
Good.
actually, I saved an item called running in there, right? Let's just quickly go over and look at what the item is. So I don't have any items here.
We are seeing your desktop there.
There you go. So you see that ID? That is a unique ID, which is every user is given. So I'm basically putting it as a primary key and then put the activities over here, just for fun.
Good.
But yeah, so as you can see, right, using Lambda and all these serverless things, you can quickly whip up a skill, to start off with, like bootstrap very fast. That is a great part of using something like Codestar, Lambda, DynamoDB. But the world is your oyster. Once you have Lambda, you have access to so many other services, as long as the IAM roles and permissions permit you to talk to all those things. So yeah. that's the skill.
And I think it's awesome that I put in the chat the kind of flow, the tutorial on how you can use it with Codestar. So if you want to check it out, what Revanth has built today, you can go and check it out. And if you have any questions, can they reach you on Twitter?
Sure. Yeah.
So here is your Twitter. I put it also in the chat so people can reach out to you and ask you any questions they have.
For sure.
To continue discussing this. Thank you very much for your time today. It was super fun to chat with you and see the skill in action. I hope the audience enjoyed it as well.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, have a great day, and we meet again next week with another episode of Serverless Office Hours. I don't know what the topic is, but I'm pretty sure you will find it out in Twitter when Julian posts it, because he always does. So I will see you next week, and have a great one. Bye.
See you, folks.